we've got guys from all walks of life when it comes to dad edge, I wouldn't, the funny thing, here's the interesting thing. If you're talking about face sweaters, right? So you're catching me at a really interesting time. I'm 47 years old and I've never had a beard that's thicker than what you're seeing right now. And it's only gonna get thicker. And that's because there's a challenge on the table for my 16-year-old, and I'll tell you about it. So my wife, she's not a big fan of me having facial hair. And, I had like this is probably as long as I've had it in the past, but she's always like, "Oh my God, will you please cut that thing? Because like when you kiss me, it just like it feels like a cactus, right? Like I don't like that." And so like I've noticed like when I shave my face and I'm smooth, I was like, man, I get a whole lot more love, when it comes to that. So like it's fine. And plus, like when my face is shaven, I look young. And when I tell people I'm 47, like nobody believes me. They're like, wait, I didn't even a lot of people are like, I didn't even know you're in your 40s. So I just have that younger face and that kind of thing. Even my 14-year-old last night, we were talking about just life in general. And he's like, and he just stopped and he goes, "Why do you look so young?" And I'm like, it's like a random thing to say. And he's like, "No, seriously, man." He's like, all my friends' dads, man, they look old. And I'm like, I don't know, man. I was like, I really never got into drugs. I never smoked. I don't drink hardly at all. I was like, yeah, I've always drank a crap ton of water. I've always exercised for the past 30 years. I was like, I guess that's probably it. But the whole thing with my beard right now. So my oldest son, he's growing a beard right now, and he's 16, and he's like, "Are we gonna do no shave November?" I was like, "You
Mhm.
know me, man." I was like, "I can't keep this thing long for very long. Mom doesn't like it." And he's like, "Yeah, but you should." And he goes, "And you shouldn't cut your hair on top of it." 'Cause he's seen me with the same hairstyle for like ever. And I'm like, "Well, that sounds like kind of a challenge, Ethan." He goes, "It is." And I was like, "Well, what's the challenge? What's on the table here?" He's like, "Let me think about that." And he's like, "All right, here's the deal." He's like, "You can't shave your face, not even trim it or cut your hair until the end of the year." And I'm like, "All right, I'll take that bet." I was like, what if I lose? What do I have to do?" And this is fun. This will probably crack you up. It doesn't seem like that much of a punishment. For me, it is. He goes, "You have to eat whatever McDonald's meal I pick out for you and the volume of it. So if I tell you to eat 3 Big Macs and 2 large order of fries and a shake, you got to do it." And I'm like, I haven't had McDonald's in probably 25 years. And I'm like, I'll take that bet. I was like, what about you? I was like, what if I win? And I will win, by the way, side note. There's no way I'm backing down. He's like, "What do you want me to do?" I was like, "You know that girl Samantha you've been talking about that you've been too afraid to talk to? On January 1st, you're asking her out on a date. So you better start that hello practice now, boy." I was like, "Start saying hello, how's your day?" That kind of thing. Like get friendly with her because you're gonna be asking her out here real soon. So by the end of the year, man, it's gonna be bigger.
Yeah, man. I love the relationship you have with, what we can call a young man, 16, he's growing and maturing. And I'm looking at you, man, and he's just, you're just rocking these diced arms, man. Just cut up and shred. I know you guys have been spending a lot of time in the gym together. Talk about that experience, what kind of passing down a passion of yours with fitness and training to your son, and what it's kind of done between the relationship. Obviously, it's creating this competitiveness between the two of you that's now manifesting in this challenge where you're going to show him up, man. You're not going to let this young boy lose to a seasoned old man. So talk about the training that you guys have been doing and kind of what that's done to the relationship between the two of you.
Yeah, so training for me is essential. I always tell the boys, they're like, "Why do you work out so much?" And I work out every day. And I was like, "Because I got to keep up with you guys. That's why." I was like, "I need the energy, man." And plus, for me, like fitness is therapy. It is the lowest hanging fruit of therapy out there. I've done it now for 30 years, and I will never stop. And the reason for that is because it's therapy between my ears and in my heart. And I always say that the physical benefits of fitness are just a bonus to me at this point. Like even if I got no physical benefits, I would still do it because it's so therapeutic for me. But the funny thing was is my 14-year-old. So I have a 16-year-old, 14-year-old, 9-year-old, 6-year-old. My 14-year-old, he's more my physical young man. Like he's football right now. He's doing wrestling. He's strong as an ox. He's only 140 pounds, but he's just ridiculously strong. And his birthday is on January 1st. And so every year we've done the same thing. December 31st, he blows out his candle at midnight, on his cake, and we all sit around and we watch the big apple drop, and we all sit around and we say, "Hey, what's Team Hagner going to do this year, right? What big things are we going to do?" So last year, I had done bodybuilding and fitness shows and stuff like that in the past. I've done, I think, 13 of them. Last one I did was 10 plus years ago. I was never going to do them again. And my 14-year-old looks at me and he goes, this year, 2022, Dad, me and you are doing a bodybuilding show together. I'm like, I'm sorry, what? And I'm sitting there like 195 pounds, probably 20% body fat, let myself go a little bit. And I'm like, I'm sorry, what? And he goes, yeah, that's what I want to do. And I'm like, oh, really? You got this all figured out? He's like, yeah, it's actually April 30th. It's in Liberty, Missouri. And I'm like, you've actually figured out where we're going to do this at and everything? He's like, yeah. And he's like, and I checked the age. The youngest I can be 13. So I'm 14. So I'm good to do the show with you. And I'm like, holy cow. And I'm like, okay. I was like 16 weeks. So we did it. We prepped for 16 weeks. I lost 30 pounds. He probably lost about 15. But we trained every day for 16 weeks. And it was the coolest journey and experience I've ever had in my life with one of my kids. And it was hard. It was very hard. And we went through, some tough times together of like, man, this really sucks. It's really a grind. But it was so incredible. At the end of the show, we went out to dinner and we were just asking ourselves, we were out with the whole family celebrating. And I was like, Mason, what was your favorite part? Because he did really well. He got second in two of his categories and he won the best poser of the entire show, the best presentation of the entire show. And I was like, what's the best part? And he was like, oh, I was winning best poser and it was like getting my medals. And he's like, it was definitely like the journey of it. And he's like, what about you? And I said, and I did well. I got second in two categories, fourth in another. And I was like, for me, man, I was like, it wasn't the hardware. I was like, it was every minute that I spent with you. I was like, because we had we had some of the best conversations, man, in that gym. And Mason, he's my son that I'm close to, but I'm not. I'm very close to him, but we also butt heads. We're kind of the same person, but we're also different. And we don't butt heads in an argumentative way. We butt heads because we're a lot alike, and we sometimes don't know how to interact with each other. And for me, I told him, I was like, that time with you is something I'll go to my grave with a smile on my face. So, for us as a family, we've always worked out, in front of the kids, with the kids in the garage, go for a run, we're just, all six of us were just really active. It's something that really binds us.
I love that, man. And I think, hearing you talk about 30 years of it being a part of your life. And then, you made the comment, like, people look at you, they're like, there's no way you're 47. 2 weekends ago, I had a chance to attend my 20-year high school reunion. So, I'm a little bit younger than you, but just like you, man, training has been a daily, staple in my life for really 20 years now. I mean, I had some insecurities in high school. I was a little bit overweight, a little shy around women. And it was like, I'm not going to allow that to happen anymore. That first summer out, I was like, I'm going to do whatever I can to grow and build the confidence that I needed. And my body transformed like within 3 months, and it stuck with me. And, I did 10 years of competing, bodybuilding, and then I finished off in classic physique 2016 and in 2017. But everybody at the reunion was like, Frank, you haven't aged in 20 years. It's like, because I've been prioritizing my health. I've been prioritizing physical activity. I've been prioritizing supplementation, proper nutrition, hydration, sleep, recovery, all these components. So I'm curious, in the work and the men that you out there, what role does, physical training play in the Dad Edge Alliance or any of the work that you're doing with men? Obviously, if a guy is struggling with his health, he's not able to show up fully as a present father.
Yeah, I would say, we don't force guys to do anything like that. Like in Data Alliance, you're talking about our mastermind community where we, host different challenges and different things to get men out of their comfort zone, but we have fun with it as well. We actually just implemented a new role in Data Alliance, which is called, one of our guys, he's on the leadership team. His name's Caleb Clapp, and he is what we call our challenge commander. So he actually, what he does is he on a month by month basis, he institutes a daily challenge of the day, right? Some of it's physical, some of it's not, some of it's like it's just the challenge of the day. And it's incredible, like the wins that are coming out of like his challenges, but a lot of them are physical. So, we want to give men a taste of, being more physical and exercising. You don't need a six pack to be a healthy father. And you don't need to have like freaking huge arms and all this other stuff like to be a healthy father. What I will tell you is that if you do decide to do physical exercise and training, The overflow and the result of that is you're going to feel better, right? You are going to, in other words, you're going to feel emotionally better. You're going to feel mentally better. You're going to probably be more productive at work. You're going to be more present in your relationships because you feel better. It's like this overall feeling of just feeling better. My son and I, my 16-year-old and I were talking just last night about this. And we were, he packed his lunch yesterday and he came home and I was like, hey, what'd you have for lunch today? And normally we allow the boys, like we encourage them to eat healthy, but we also know like there's gonna be some school lunches. They're gonna eat some pizza and burgers and all that stuff too. We don't try to, keep them totally away from that, but we just always are encouraging them to eat healthy, which they do. But my son, my 16-year-old told me, he's like, yeah, he's like, I brought we have like one of those pre-made meals like that we buy on a weekly basis or whatever, pre-made meaning like it's all fresh, but like it's got chicken and some rice and some veggies and that kind of thing. Had like this buffalo sauce. And I was like, hey, did you bring that to school? He's like, yeah, I did. I was like, how'd you like it? He's like, I loved it. And then I asked him, I was like, how did you feel the last half of your day after you ate lunch? He's like, and he kind of thought and he goes, I felt really good. And I was like, what did your stomach feel like? He's like, it didn't feel full. I didn't feel weighed down. I didn't feel bloated. And I was like, how did you show up for your classes after lunch feeling that way? He's like, and you could tell he hadn't given much thought about it. But when I was asking him, he's like, I actually felt better. He's like, I don't have any homework tonight. I just plowed through my homework, you know, through my classes. And I was like, that's awesome. He's like, and I had sprinting practice today and I noticed that I was able to run faster and I felt better. And I was like, what did that do for just the overall output of the entire day? He's like, it just made the day better. And then he said it without me. He's like, I think I'm gonna pack my lunch tomorrow. But I'll tell you that those are the benefits, right? When you're eating healthy, when you're exercising, you have like these really nice outputs, which is like I feel better, I look better, I'm operating differently. And the last thing I told him was I was like, listen, I was like, you always give me a bunch of grief because I'm always eating healthy and I don't like to eat unhealthy. I was like, to be honest, it isn't that I don't crave unhealthy food. Like, dude, I've never met a McDonald's French fry I didn't like. But at the same time, if I eat that, I know how I'm going to feel. So that's why I just stay away from it. It's what I have to pay after I do something like that, which is usually I'm lethargic. I don't feel right. I feel like just vegging out, and I don't want to feel that way.
Yeah, no, I love that. I think you said it's been over 20 years since you've had any McDonald's. I know you said you've been training for 30 plus years. Can you talk about those early years? Like where were you in life and what was kind of going on? What was the journey into fitness? I told you I overweight, athletic kid, like definitely, I wasn't not an athlete, multi sports, varsities and whatnot. But I think for me, it was the lack of the nutrition understanding within the home. We ate what was prepared for us. A lot of times we'd have, TV style dinners. We definitely eat fast food. There wasn't a lot of training that I was witnessing in my family. So I just modeled what was kind of shown to me. So I'm curious with you, like what was kind of your entry journey into the training and the physical side of things?
It was the opposite of how I'm living now. So I grew up kind of like you. For the first 17 years of my life, I was overweight. And I was the fat kid. I was the kid that everybody made fun of at recess. I was the kid that at a public school, at a public pool, I was, man boobs, lard ass, fat ass, all that stuff. I was bullied, beaten up, all that stuff. No girls liked me. No girls gave me the time of day. Finally, the turning point. This is a really humiliating story, but I'll share it with you. The turning point for me was I was 15. My mom had gone through her second divorce when I was 10, and she had dated a variety of just absolute train wreck losers, toxic men who were abusive. And the one that was living with us at the time was the cream of the crop. Like he was the most abusive, the most toxic, an absolute train wreck, horrible person to be around. But he was a very fit guy and he used to compete in bodybuilding and was a trainer and all that other stuff. And he was living with us, and so was his son. So I went to a mixer, which is like this dance. Like our school hosted it, and basically you invite all the surrounding schools, and girls and guys can come to it and that kind of thing. So it was packed, and I'm 15, and I see this girl that I was really interested in. I was like, man, that girl's so cute. And I was fat, overweight. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm just going to be another girl that rejects me and whatever else. I don't know what it was in me, but I got the courage to go up to her at the end of the night because they play like the last three slow songs at the end of the night. I finally muster the courage, everything I had to go up to this girl. And I just took a deep breath and I went up to her. I was like, "Hey," I was like, "would you like to dance?" And she literally like stood back, gave me this look of like disgust. And then she did this. She looked me up and down again. And she goes, "Not a chance." And I remember that. I mean, dude, that was 32 years ago or whatever it was. I can't do math. Yeah. I remember that like it was yesterday. Like I remember the feeling of being so sad, so pissed, angry, and hurt. And I'm like, screw all this. Like I was just done. I went home, got a ride home with one of my friends. I walk in the door, tail between my legs. I sit down on the couch, and of course, I see my mom's boyfriend there, and I'm like, God, this sucks. So I sit there, I don't say anything, and he goes, "What's up with you?" And I'm like, "What do you mean?" He goes, "You look like you just lost your dog or something." And I go, "Yeah, it was a pretty rough night." And he goes, I did not want to tell him about it because I was humiliated. And he goes, "Well, what happened?" And I was like, "Nothing." And he goes, I think he said something along the lines of like, "Out with it." Like basically like, "Tell me." And I was like, "All right, here's what happened." And I told him, and he's like sitting there taking it all in. And he goes, "Huh." He goes, "Well, I have one question for you." And I'm like, "Okay." And he goes, "You sick and tired of being a fat ass yet?" And I go, "Well, this night's just getting better." And I don't know. And I just was freaking pissed out of my mind. I'm like, "God bless, man. You have no empathy. Like you just pour salt in my wound." Right. But I didn't say that. And I just kind of took that in for a minute. And I don't know what it was, man. But I looked at him and I go, "Yeah, yeah, actually I am." And he goes, "Uh huh. Uh huh." He goes, "Well, you ready to do something about it yet?" And I go, and I had no idea what was going to be on the other side of that one. And I go, "Yeah, yeah, I am." He goes, "Okay, we start tomorrow." And I was like, "What do we start?" He goes, "We start tomorrow. That's all you need to know." And I'm like, "All right." 4:30 in the morning rolls around. There's a knock on my door. My light comes on. "Get up. We're starting." I'm like, "What are we doing?" He's like, "Come on, get dressed. Get workout clothes on." Took me out in the garage where he had all of his weights and all this stuff. And that man trained me for like an hour and a half. I couldn't even walk the next day. But then I got up and did it. So he woke me up every morning, 4:30, 6 straight months. I lost about 55 pounds. And then I went out for the high school wrestling team and got more fit. And that was the start of my journey. And suddenly, man, everything in my life, everything turned around. My grades, my confidence, my friends. I had girlfriends. Like I felt like I was on cloud nine. And it started with that foundation of being more physically fit.
Curious, Larry, with the work that you've been doing now for as many years, obviously the research of, how yourself can become a great father first, and then helping the thousands, if not millions of fathers all around the world. You made a comment like the lack of empathy, like maybe not the best way to handle that situation, like in the moment, but what would Larry today, founder of the Dad Edge, the man that speaks to fathers all around the world, have said to, I don't think he was your stepdad, I think he was just living at the time. Would you have changed anything about how he spoke to you? Because I don't think it's the maybe correct way, but without the way that he spoke to you, do you think that it would have changed your life in the trajectory that it did? So, yeah, I'm not sure if you're understanding the question there, but what would Larry today go back and say to that man about how he spoke to a kid that was hurting? Like, would you have done anything differently?
Yeah. So great question. That's the way that guy operated at all times. He just was kind of callous and pretty unemotional, pretty, not empathetic whatsoever. My style of fatherhood is I am tough love, but I'm empathetic. So like I'm gonna hear you, I'm gonna see you, I'm gonna reflect back to you, I'm gonna make sure that you are completely understood. And I might give you some tough love. Now I probably won't give it to you kicking the balls like that. But I mean, I had a conversation with my 16-year-old over the summer, like where he was sleeping in a lot, and he was trying to get ready for track season and cross country season. He was sleeping in a lot. He wasn't getting a lot of things done. He was playing his Oculus a lot and stuff like that. And there was one day where I sat him down and I wasn't that empathetic person. I basically told him how it was. I was like, I've seen a few things this summer. And he's like, what's that? And I go, you're not, I've noticed you haven't really gotten a whole lot of things done that you wanted to get done. He's like, what do you mean? I was like, well, you want to be more physically fit. You want to work on your sprinting. You want to work on this. I haven't seen you do that once. I was like, you're not pulling your weight around the house. I was like, I see you like not doing much of anything, wasting a lot of your time. And he even told me, he was like, wow, he goes, that was brutal. I was like, yeah, and it's also the truth. It is. And I love you, but I'm also not here to, push rainbows and sunshine up your ass all the time. I didn't say up your ass, but basically that was the premise, right? And I was like, sometimes every now and again you're going to get some tough love from me and you kind of need to hear it right now. And it pissed him off. And then he came back to me the next day and he goes, that really made me upset. And I'm like, okay, I'm sure it did. He goes, and I really needed to hear it. So I think that there's a time and a place where tough love and kind of more like in your face style works really, really well. And there's a time it absolutely doesn't. Now, if one of my boys would have come home crushed like that, I would not have handled it like that. But I also don't know if I would have taken action any other way. If he was soft on me, maybe I wouldn't have. Maybe I'd still be overweight today. But yeah, I just think you have to really read a situation well. But to answer your question, I think different situations call for different approaches.
You ask great questions. Obviously, it's the work that you've done in the podcasting that's probably attributed to that. But in hearing how you discuss and have conversations with your children, it's like you're not telling, you're pulling things out of them that they probably know, or you're going to lead them to certain conclusions based upon what needs to be best for them. So talk about, how you've gotten to this point where you have these relationships where it's not, I'm going to tell you, but we're going to get to these conclusions together. And then how has the ability to ask questions of your children improved the relationship, the fathering, the communication, and just everything about, what the family dynamic there?
Yeah. So I think what you're really hitting on here is one thing that I pride myself on. Sometimes I'm great at it, sometimes I'm not, but my batting average is pretty high with it. And that's creating an environment of psychological safety. Psychological safety is where you can share anything on your mind and heart, and you're not going to be met with guilt, shame, blame, or pain. So I'll give you an example. Um, the very first time my mom caught me with a porn tape, a VHS porn tape, it was met with, you're disgusting, you're going to hell. That's a more like all these horrible things, right? That I was, you should be ashamed of yourself. What's wrong with you? I mean, I thought I was like an abnormal pervert, which, you talk to your friends and they're all doing the same stuff, right? So, that basically taught me, okay, I shouldn't go and talk to my mom about this stuff because I'm going to be met with this. So my style of parenting is I'm the place, I am the person where you can bring all your dirty laundry, and it's going to be met with whatever you tell me. I'm not going to be surprised, right? Or at least I'm not going to act surprised. And to date, I have been shocked with some of the things that have been told me, but not because I think they're abnormal, but because my kids have felt so comfortable telling me some of these things. Like I had a conversation, I'm going to keep it private, with one of my boys where we were sitting there playing a game one night, and he just openly told me something that he was tempted to do. And I'm not going to share what it is. It's nothing illegal, but it's something I would have never have said to my parents ever. And it was something he was tempted to do that evening. And I was like, what? And I met that way. I didn't meet it with like, what's wrong with you, man? You shouldn't be doing that. Instead, I was like, wow. I was like, man, that probably took a lot of courage for you to tell me that. And he's like, yeah, it did. I was like, God love you, man. I was like, how do you feel now? Like just saying that out loud. He's like, I feel better. I was like, cool. I was like, you want to talk through it? And he's like, yeah. And we did. And it was met with, he walked away from that conversation with a couple of different things. Number one, the temptation was no longer there, and what he wanted to do, he didn't do. Number two, he knew that the next time he was faced with something like that, he now knows he has a template and a blueprint and an experience that he can come back to me. And he knows that I'm going to be consistent with that. So back to your question though, I'm a big believer in, I don't like to lecture. And I don't like to lecture because I think our kids just tune us out. And we think we have like these grandiose like pieces of advice and ways to live their life and all this other stuff. When in actuality, it's more powerful if they say it and I don't. So instead of lecturing, I just ask a lot of questions. And I'm happy to give you an example of that if you want.
Absolutely. Yeah, let's run through this. And I'd like to, even maybe zero in a little bit more on what the men out there can do to have the tools to create these environments of psychological safety.
Yeah. So if you're going to create this environment of psychological safety where your kids and your wife will come and talk to you about things, then you need to be vigilant. I always tell guys, be vigilant that anything can be shared with you at any time and you just don't be surprised by it. Like be ready for it. Kind of like a Navy SEAL, right? They're always battle ready. Always. Even in civilian life, they're always eyeballing a situation, right? They're being vigilant. Same thing. If you're vigilant, then there's not a whole lot of things that will shock you because you're ready for it. So be ready for it. So I'll give you an example. I didn't make the best grades growing up and for a long time and until I actually found fitness and then my grades turned around, kind of a crazy result, right? But I wasn't the best student and I always remember whatever grades I got was met with a lot of consequences, a lot of yelling, a lot of shouting, and a lot of lecturing, which all that made me, it didn't help a thing. So what I do with my kids is let's just say one of them comes home with a not so great grade, on a test. They might tell me, they'd be like, I got a D on that test, right? And I'll be like, man, thanks for telling me that. That probably took a lot of courage. So I always like to meet them with that, right? Thanks for telling me that. That probably took a lot of courage. And I make sure that I use the right voice tone. I don't say, man, well, that took a lot of courage. Because now that the meaning of that and how it lands for them is going to be different. It's more condescending, right? More insulting. But if I have that inflect of curiosity, like, wow, that probably took a lot of courage. Now it lands for them like, yeah, it did. So I'm like, well, great. I was like, well, so tell me about it. Tell me why you think you got the D. And they'll be like, well, and they'll tell me why I wasn't really ready for the material or I was ready for half of it. Some of the questions took me by surprise. They'll go through like some of the things, right? I don't need to tell them that they can tell me. I'd be like, yeah. I was like, well, let me ask you this. I always love this question. It's a great generative question. Anytime you have a bad moment as a kid, one of the greatest questions we can ask as parents is if you had to do this situation over again, what would you do different? Basically what you're doing is they are debriefing their own situation. Like they're the ones who are debriefing it, not you. And they're like, I probably would have studied 2 more nights. I sloughed off, 2 nights and I tried to cram it all in one night. Or I only studied half the material. I thought I knew the other half and I didn't. Or I would get with a group, and study as a group with people, that kind of thing. I think that would have got me a better grade. I didn't have to tell them any of that. They did. And what comes from them, they're going to be more driven to do, and they're going to have more skin in the game to do it versus me just telling them and lecturing them. I'm like, man, that's good insight. Well, let me ask you this. When is your next test? And they'll be like, well, I got one next Wednesday. Like, okay, well, based on what you've told me and what we've learned through this situation, what would you do different getting prepared for that one versus this one? And they will literally tell me the plan. I don't have to tell them anything. And then I'm like, that's a great plan. I think that's a great idea. How can I best support you? Would you like for me to check in with you? I can hold you accountable. If you want, I can even quiz you the night before. What feels right to you? And I like to use those word feeling, like what feels right to you, because kids are feeling people. And they'll kind of like think about it and they'll be like, if you could just check in with me, that'd be awesome. Or if you could quiz me, that would be really, really helpful. You got it. It's a good plan. I think you're going to do well in this next test. So then he exits that conversation with like, man, dad didn't yell at me. I wasn't met with guilt, shame, or not that they can articulate that. I wasn't met with like a barrage of guilt and blame and all this other stuff. And I learned something. And I learned something about me and how I operate and how I can optimize the next experience with my test. I didn't have to do a thing except for guide them with questions to get to their own solutions. And I think that's how you can create an environment of psychological safety. And guess what? Your kids will perform better because they have more skin in the game to stick to their plan versus the grandiose plan that I might have made for them.
It's very much like coaching, Larry. I coach, I coach men, young men, as young as 18, and we've had men, in their 60s, in our groups and in our programs. And, these guys are working through massive challenges in life. Guilt, shame, all these feelings that, you were mentioning there is what's going on inside of them. And as we're working through, overcoming these struggles, like they have slips, they have relapses. And what I'm hearing you kind of articulate there, it's the process that I would lead somebody through if they're struggling with breaking free from an addiction to pornography. You had a slip this week. Well, what happened? Okay, well, if you were not have had the slip relapse, how would things have played differently? And then let's develop a plan moving forward, because you're going to be tested with the same temptations. You're going to feel those urges. You're going to feel those triggers in the same exact way. So let's build a proactive plan moving forward. What do you need to do? And the last thing is what support, what help, what accountability is is needed there. I love how you break these things down into a way that men that maybe have a sports kind of coaching background can really understand. I really enjoy that. But you said something there right as you were talking about that. It's like creating the psychological environment, or the environment of psychological safety for your children, but also for your wife. I think a lot of times when kids enter into a situation, enter into the family, like the relationship between mom and dad get kind of pushed aside, and it's like we're gonna spend 18 years like focusing on the children, and parents' needs, parents' relationships, parents' connection, communication gets pushed aside. So talk about the importance of prioritizing the relationship between the mother and father first, and how that's going to carry over into the role you can play as a father.
I go back to, the statement, the best lessons in life are caught, not taught. So if I'm telling my kids like, hey, you need to create this environment where people feel comfortable telling you things, but they can't tell me things. And then, oh, by the way, they watch me and their mom do this dance of like, well, she says something to me and then I fly off the handle, get pissed, or vice versa, right? So we need to make sure that the audio matches the video, right? And I think one of the ways the audio matches the video is how I treat their mom, right? Or how comfortable their mom feels with me. So like, you know, I mean, I've known Jessica for 26 years. We've been married for 19. We've had a lot of tough conversations. There was definitely times in our relationship early on when I didn't know these skills. I didn't even know. If you would have asked me 8 years ago, hey man, how are you at creating an environment of psychological safety? I would have looked at you like you had three heads. Like, what does that even mean? Like, what are you talking about? But now I know the importance of it. But with my wife, the three basic needs of a woman, of a wife, is to feel seen, to feel heard, and to feel safe. Seen, heard, and safe. When those three needs are getting fulfilled, your woman feels amazing. Absolutely amazing. And by the way, just bonus note, the three needs of a man is to feel respected, appreciated, and validated. Respected, appreciated, and validated. When those three needs are being met on both sides, that's when your marriage feels like it's on fire, like it's unstoppable. So if my wife comes to me and needs to have a tough conversation with me, and there have been times where, she'll say something to me, she's like, I need to talk to you and I'm kind of dreading this conversation. Now, the old me would have been on the defenses. The way I've been operating now for years is what do you got? Right? Because I want to hear it, because whatever she's going to tell me, it's tough for her to tell me, but I know it's important to her. Right? And how I meet her in that conversation will dictate whether or not she holds in what she wants to tell me in the future or becomes resentful with it. Emotional resent. So things, if you don't create an environment of psychological safety where people feel very free to share something that's on their mind and heart, and oh, by the way, they have to do it in a respectful manner. Just because we create an environment of psychological safety, that doesn't mean our wives can emasculate us, disrespect us, treat us like garbage. That's not what I'm saying. You're not a doormat with psychological safety. There's still boundaries. But if my wife has something she wants to share with me, maybe it's how I'm operating, or how, like, so for instance, when I was getting ready for that show that I was telling you about, my diet was really tight. I was kind of cranky. I didn't have patience with the kids. I was kind of disconnected from her. I was distracted. I was exhausted. A lot of the heavy lifting went on her because she was the one who was getting dinners ready. Like, I was training with Mason. That was building up resentment in her. It's like, man, like, doing all this work, and plus he's just not all that pleasant to be around lately. Now, I created an environment where she told me about that, right? And I met her. I was like, wow, that kind of sucks to hear, but you know what? You're absolutely right. I need to do something about that, right? Versus trying to defend it. Now, what happens is, I knew she was right, but what happens is I'm leaving the door open, and I thanked her for the feedback. I'm like, thanks for telling me that. If you see something out of line like that, please come back and tell me. So if she didn't tell me that, or if I have a conversation or she has an experience with me where she knows like, okay, well, I can't talk to him about that anymore. That door is shut. But what happens is then she gets resentful. Emotional resentment is the cancer that will kill your marriage. It's the silent killer. It's when you go to the doctor and you're like, wow, you're in stage 4 cancer. You had no idea, right? But this is when, and guys will experience this when they roll over in the morning and they kiss their wife on the cheek and she looks at him and says, I just don't want to be married to you anymore. I'm just done. And he's like, wait, what? What are you talking about? Yeah, I'm just done. I've been done for a while. So if you're not creating an environment of psychological safety where these things can be shared with you or you share with them, you're creating an environment where emotional resentment will birth. And that is the metastases that will just absolutely destroy your marriage.
What are some early signs that a guy can, hear in this right now? And he's like, yeah, Larry, this is speaking to me right now. I don't know any of this stuff. I've never heard any of this. And he's kind of now he's thinking like, am I, am I creating any type of environment? What can a guy out there look for in terms of maybe some of those early warning signs? So he doesn't get to that point when the wife rolls over and is like, peace out, I'm gone.
Yeah, great question. If your conversations are all managerial and high level and they're focused more on parenting than your intimate relationship, that's a sign. If you're my wife and I call it we're under the same roof spinning in different orbits because we get that way sometimes. Sometimes I'm so much in my lane, she's so much in her lane, and we haven't connected for a while. So we start to kind of spin in different orbits. And then she'll do a thing and then I'll do a thing, meaning like, oh, wait, I thought you were doing this. No, I thought you were doing that. And like we're realizing, wow, we really haven't come together and talked. So if you feel like you're under the same roof but spinning in different orbits, like you're each in your own lane and never coming together to talk, that could be a sign as well. Your intimacy, that's a sign. If it feels like you're going through the motions and it's, and it's maybe it's rare if ever, that's a sign as well. If your conversations, if you're coming to a conversation and you're like, oh my God, I cannot say this. I'm dreading this. Oh, what is she going to say? What is she going to do? Or if she's thinking that, that's a sign. You should feel okay, maybe a little nervous, but okay to be like, I'm going to tell, it's going to be a tough conversation, but I'm going to share it with him or her. So that's another sign right there. Um, it's, I wish that these things were taught before we got married. Even if people learned 2 or 3 different skill sets around communication before they got married, I mean, we would see the divorce rate plummet.
Hearing you talk, man, it's like, I'm in the same world as you, so a lot of this is like it's refreshing things. It's like, yeah, I've heard similar context conversations here. A lot of the people, friends, colleagues, mastermind associates and whatnot, like they live these things out. But then I think about everybody that I know that is maybe not operating in like the self-help personal development space. It's like you just explained or broke down 90% of relationships or marriages that I can think about in my life. So what percentages based on your understanding of marriages are at that point versus the ones that are actually thriving?
It's a great question. So everybody knows the divorce rate's about 51% these days. What a lot of people don't know is the statistics of the people that do stay together. But so the 50% that stay together, they're actually divided up equally into 3 separate camps. So one third, one third, and one third. Kind of fascinating how it plays out. But the research was actually done by Lance and Brandy Salazar, who wrote the book Miracle Morning for Couples. So they wrote that book with Hal Elrod. It's part of the Miracle Morning series, but they found those statistics somewhere, and I can't remember where to cite them. But so let's start with the first one third. Camp number one. These people are actually doing just fine. They're like me and Jessica, perhaps like you and your wife. But that's where like, hey, things are good. Like it's pretty much everything I always wanted. Not every day sunshine and rainbows, but like we can get through anything. And I have a whole lot of confidence we're going to stick it. We're in this for the long haul, and intimacy's on point, communication's on point, date nights are happening. Overall, there's a general feeling of happiness. And there's some common denominators with camp number one. I'll get back to that. Camp number two is it's okay. Not, I'm she's okay, he's okay, kind of boring. I'm sort of settling. I don't want to get divorced. That's too much of a hassle. I don't want to separate. That's a hassle. I love him. She loves me. Like whatever. But it's not everything I ever wanted. And it just sort of feels stagnant. It just sort of feels like it's coasting. That's camp number two. Camp number three is they have no connection whatsoever. They are 2 strangers living underneath the exact same roof, and there's no intimacy. There's no connection. There's no date nights. There's none of that. Like literally it's 2 separate human beings living under the same roof. The fascinating thing is there's 2 reasons that couple will stay together. Number one, they have a perception that we need to stay together for the kids. And what they don't realize is they're giving their kids a front row seat to an absolute dysfunctional relationship. And what's going to probably happen is those relationships, that example is going to perpetuate into their kids' lives. That's a really sad thing. But yet in their mind, they're like, well, we got to stay together for the kids. You're actually probably doing your kids a disservice by doing that. The second reason is financial. It's too financially devastating for them to break things off. So they're usually waiting for the kids to move out, and then they're just done. Let me get back to camp number one, because I said there's common denominators. Camp number one is we grow together. We set our egos aside. We are constantly learning about ourselves and about each other. If we need help, we go seek it out. We're not too proud to say that we've got this all figured out. They go get a marriage counselor. They go get a coach. They read books together. They grow together, and they are constantly curious about each other. Like, that's their goal. So there's this element of this growth mindset when it comes to successful couples, and that their work is never done. They don't they don't rely on, I wish we were the way we were before kids. When I hear a couple say that, I'm like, that is ridiculous. That's like you saying, I wish I could be 27 again. It's not physically possible for you to turn the clock back and be 27 years old again. It's not possible for you to have your relationship like it was when you were 20 years old, before kids, before you were married. But guess what? It can be better. It really can. It can be even better. But so many people are looking in the rear view. So many marriages. This is a great analogy, and this is not mine. I can't remember who said it. But many people will look at their marriage through the rear view mirror and be like, we need to get back to that. We need to get back to that. And if we're not back to that, then we're not good. That's like driving from Minneapolis to Florida and looking at the rear view mirror the whole time. That's not going to get you there safely. And it doesn't give you any context. Like, you don't go south by avoiding going north. You go south because you're driving to south.
Do you think that's only showing up in people's marriages and relationships, though? Or do you think that's how a vast majority of people live their entire life? Like, hearing you say that the common denominator between the successful marriages is the growth mindset. It's like, God, like, here it is again. Like, the principles for success in any endeavor are universal. How do you succeed in fitness? You know this 30 years. You're not doing the same workouts that you did when you were in the garage with, the stepfather. You've had to grow, progress, advance, try new things in your business. I'm sure what you're operating from today and everything that you've created with the Dad Edge is not what it was when it was the Good Dad project. There's been elements of growth in you, in your understanding. So I'm curious here, is this something that is only showing up in their relationships, or is this how it's showing up, a manifestation of their entire view on life?
Well, I think it's a little bit of both, because I think it's human nature, because we're uncertain about the future. So we look at the past for the experiences and the breadcrumbs. And you're exactly right. I mean, I remember when we were just Good Dad Project. I remember even 2016 when we started our mastermind, and I was just leading one call team. Well, now we have 50 call teams per week. And we have a leadership team of 80 people now, 80 coaches that work within the Dad Edge. And I've got an assistant now. I have a COO, right? And all these things are vastly different than what they were 5-6 years ago. But I'm not looking in the rearview mirror being like, I wish it was like that, right? Because I'll tell you, I mean, like, with growth comes growing pains, right? And while the Dad Edge is like this fantastic organization, and it's a huge organization, a huge community now with a lot of people who are working through it. It's bigger, but that doesn't mean it's not, we're immune to pain. We absolutely feel pain, but we have to find new ways to remedy pain and grow, versus like, oh, we should just treat it like it was back then. But it's not that way, right? It's different now.
I love that, man. Love that. Talk about the pursuit of legendary fatherhood. I know you got a new project book that's up and coming. Tell us about, kind of the genesis behind that, and what you're really excited about, bringing to the world.
Man, I'm really excited about this book. I had so much excitement writing the book, just because, like, I remember when I wrote the book, The Dad Edge, back in 2015, and it was about as basic as you could probably get. Like, it gave you just 9 different strategies on how to connect with your kids, how to be more patient. Like, it was like really kindergarten type stuff, right? It's great for a beginner dad. And what the pursuit of legendary fatherhood is it basically encapsulates everything that we've learned as a community through the podcast, through our mastermind, and I've put it into an 85,000 word book. Sounds big and daunting. I guess it kind of is, um, but it's divided up into 4 different sections. Number 1 is what men are faced with. I call that the drift, right? It's the wash, rinse, repeat cycle that pretty much a lot of men are on. And I'll tell you, it's not because men are lazy or they don't have a desire to be better. It's just because that's just our view of how we think life is, right? It's just is what it is. Um, then the next section is husband, right? Which is basically the entire section is on marriage, how to create this incredible relationship with your wife. Like literally, I teach you all the steps in there that we've learned. Then there's parenting, like there's the connection with your kids. I break it into raising daughters, raising sons, creating environments of psychological safety where your kids will talk to you about anything, connections through adventure, all kinds of rites of passage, everything. And then the last section is leader. So I give you 10 different tenets on leadership. I'm really excited about this book because I put my heart and soul in this book and everything that we've learned pretty much in it, but I've simplified it as well. The funny thing is the book was supposed to come out September 26th, and the publisher that I went through went bankrupt, unfortunately. And I found this out 6 weeks before we were supposed to launch the book. Good news is I have all the rights to my book back. It's a totally finished product. The cover, the inside, everything's done. So I hired an agent, and now we are shopping it to the top publishers in the world, which is great. Like what we call the big 5. So HarperCollins and Penguin and Random House and all them. So she's negotiating book deals literally as we speak. So I should have something hopefully by the end of the year as far as an offer goes. And I would imagine it will probably now be launched in the spring.
Incredible. No, that's awesome, and excited to get behind that and push that out and get that in the hands of as many men as possible. We've spoken a lot here today, Larry, to the men that, maybe have children already, the current fathers. I'd say that's about half of the audience. There's gonna be a lot of men that are listening to this that are maybe newly married, maybe in their early 20s, maybe in their, mid to late 30s, and they haven't yet settled down and found the right woman and started a family. So, as we kind of bring today's, conversation to a close, any tips, advice for the men out there that aren't yet a father? What should they be focusing on? What should they be doing? Where should their planning and preparation be so that when they get there, they are ready to step right into being not just a good dad, but really a legendary father?
That's just, man, that's it. So what I'll tell you is, if you really look at what we do with the Dad Edge, it's personal development through men through the eyes of a father and husband. That's really what it is. If you look at the podcast, it's not just on parenting. It's not just on marriage. It's on mindset. It's on grit. It's on resilience. It's on physicality. It's literally everything that's on the mind and heart of a man. But here's what I'll tell you. If I could give any game-changing advice to someone who's younger, maybe someone who isn't married yet, or maybe they're newly married, it's this. We go to college for a 4-year degree in a certain discipline. I got my degree in sports medicine with a minor in nutrition. So I can tell you anything about the body, training, that kind of thing, right? I went and didn't do anything with that degree. And I went in and I went into pharmaceutical sales right out of college. And I had to go through 12 weeks of training to learn all the science, the chemistry, the pharmacology, the sales, everything to learn how to do that job. I did that job for about 4 years. Then I went into medical device sales where I had to go get certified to basically be in the OR, to be in scrubs next to these doctors and train them on our products. So I had to learn our product, learn all about sterility, all that stuff. So I could do all that. I knew nothing about marriage. I knew basically nothing about relationships, and basically nothing about parenting. And I think that encapsulates a lot of us. Like, we're just like, well, I love her, she loves me, so that should be enough, right? We'll figure it out. And we don't go about that in any other discipline of our entire lives. Like, can you imagine if the US military, like if you showed up to basic training and they're like, hey, you know what? We don't do basic training anymore. Today you're a Marine. Actually, tomorrow we're deploying you. Not to worry. We got your uniform. We got your firearm, everything you're going to need. Don't worry. You'll figure it out. Best time of your whole life. It would be disastrous. But yet that's what we do in our relationships. That's what we do in parenting. That's what we do with the women in our lives. And what I'll tell you is, do not be afraid. In fact, embrace any training, any coaching, any mentoring you can possibly get your hands on, because it will make your life so much easier. I mean, I don't know about you, but when I became a father, I knew all these things I wasn't going to do. But when I go and buy a grill at Home Depot, and I bring that thing home and I unbox it and I take the manual out, it doesn't give me 100 ways not to put the thing together. It gives me the one way to put the entire thing together. And that's I honestly think, Frank, that that is the missing link in relationships and marriage because if even if you boil this down to a driver's license, my 16-year-old, he had to take a written and a driving test where he actually had to drive with a highway patrolman in his car. And that patrolman had to be like, yes, you know all these things, you know all the rules. I'm signing off on this that you can legally drive a vehicle in this state. We don't even do that in marriage. Can you imagine what it would be like if we were required to take 3 courses on effective communication with your wife? Just that alone, just that, it's 3 courses. And then you could get your marriage license. So just I would approach and I would encourage men never, ever, ever stop learning. There's no curriculum around this. You can try to wing it if you want, but that is going to be like looking for $1 million in a suitcase on a porch that you don't have a map to. And someone just told you, hey, there's $1 million in a suitcase on a porch. I'm not giving you the map, but you can go look for it. Like that's you probably do that for all about maybe a day or two. And so that's the advice I'd give guys.
Yeah, I love that, man. I can remember a few years back when I went through. This was with an ex, and I'm single, not a father, actually, at the moment, Larry. But I'd gone through a pre-married course at our church with an ex. I remember in week 1, the guy leading the group was like, 20% of you won't be together by the end of this. Like, and they actually encouraged like the really difficult conversations. And our relationship didn't end through the course of that. It ended a few months later. But I believe had we not gone through that, we wouldn't have been exposed to some of the challenges that we knew were going to show up and ultimately led us to ending our relationship. So I agree 100%. We need more coaching. We need more training. We need more guys like you. We need the dad edge in as many men's lives as possible. So I know you got a very, very important text message right before we hit record here. So there's a beautiful woman waiting for your lovely time. So tell the guys where they can connect with you, where they can learn about you, the podcast, if they're interested in maybe joining one of your programs, or I know you guys got a lot of courses. So yeah, where can connect with you, and then we'll bring today's conversation to a close with our last question.
Yeah, for sure, man. Best way to find me is thedadedge.com. I'm Dad Edge everywhere. So on Instagram and Facebook. And I mean, if you just Google the Dad Edge, you'll find us. If you're looking for any type of trainings that are free that we don't charge for, I have a whole list of them. There's about 5 of them. If you go to thedadedge.com/resources, you'll find I've got a couple things there for you. How to be fully present with your kids. I give you some training around that. How to create an environment of psychological safety. How to ask your wife. There's 25 intimate conversation starters, 21 days to an extraordinary marriage. I even have a course on patience, how to be a more patient, resilient father. So you can find all those over, like I said, thedadedge.com/resources. There's all kinds of free trainings we have over there.
Absolutely. I appreciate that. And guys, we'll get all that information shared down. We'll actually put the Dad Edge and the resource link there as well. I highly recommend checking out Larry's podcast. I think over 1,000 episodes in, has had some of the biggest, most impactful, influential men in the world. So, Larry, as we bring today's conversation to a close with our last question, obviously the title of this show is called The Superhuman Life. I'm a man of faith. You know, I come from the belief that I do believe that we're here for a purpose. There's a calling on each one of our lives, but knowing that and understanding that you're here for a purpose is just the first step. We must show up intentionally and aggressively every single day in developing that purpose to bring it to the world for others. So I'd like to end every conversation here with the same question. Mr. Larry Hagner, how would you define living a superhuman life?
I would say the best way to live is to what we say is live legendary, which means you live with leaving nothing on the table, nothing left unsaid, nothing left undone. And that could be something as simple as the way you say goodnight to your kids. Like it's literally that simple. The way you interact with your wife, you know, the way when I come to an interaction with somebody, I'm going to give them 125%, 150% of my attention. I'm not going to give them 50%. So living legendary is always asking yourself, is there more in the tank? Am I going to leave anything on the table, you know, regarding this situation, this interaction, this thing I'm going to do? You know, that's the way to live. One of the heaviest things in the world that we can carry is regret. It's regret. And I don't know about you, but I don't want to regret a damn thing. when I'm on my deathbed. My son told me, we had this really interesting discussion, and I think this is a great way to end the show. My 16-year-old and I had this really cool discussion yesterday, and he always tells me, I love my life. And man, as a father, dude, that almost brings a freaking tear to my eye. I'm like, holy cow, because I'd never said that at his age. In fact, it was the opposite. I'm like, you love your life. He's like, I do. He's like, I love my life. He's like, I go to a good school that I love. I play instruments that I love. I have parents that love me. Like I always want to be home. I love my life. I love everything about it. And I told him, I was like, I could die tomorrow content, just knowing that you said that, just knowing you said that. And I check in with myself on that question quite a bit. If I died tomorrow, would I regret anything? If the answer is yes, there's some things undone. If the answer is no, all right, mission accomplished today, right? So, yeah, don't go to don't go to your deathbed. Maybe the last thing that I'll say is this is a quote. The definition of hell is meeting the man that we could have become when we're laying on our deathbed. I don't want to meet that man. I want to be laying on my deathbed with a smile on my face, going like, it wasn't always great. There were some tough things, but man, I didn't leave anything on the table. Said everything I want to say, did everything I want to do, had the relationships I always wanted. Mission accomplished. I'm ready to go.
God, that's beautiful, man. Thank you. Thank you for all that. Guys, you heard it there. Without regrets, chase your legendary life, man. Larry, it's been an absolute honor. Big fan, man. Going to continue to follow and inspire, or just, yeah, man. Keep doing what you're doing. Huge impact in the world, brother. I love you, man. Guys, hope you got value out of today's conversation. If you did, you can continue to help us and grow in one of two ways. First off, been tuning in for a little bit while and you haven't done so yet, take 2 seconds and leave us a 5-star rating and written review. It means more to us and the growth of this show than anything you could possibly imagine. But more importantly, if there's a man that's going through maybe some of the struggles or challenges, or a struggling father that you know in your life right now, do us a favor, but do him the blessing by sharing today's conversation with him. But for Larry Hagner, CEO of The Dad Edge, Frank Rich, your host here, we love you guys, and we'll see you next week.